Now, there are 7 Rosicrucian stages of higher knowledge. The first stage in the Rosicrucian way is the study of spiritual science. Now, there's something hidden here. Why is the first stage the study of spiritual science? We're talking about literally studying spiritual text. First part of it is to develop our capacity to think logically. Now, in most spiritual circles today, in Western metaphysics, we look at things that are intellectual or logical as somehow lower than things that are spiritual. But that was not how it was understood in the original traditions. They understood the capacity to think logically as a superpower that would allow you to completely transform nature and to use all the forces of nature. Also, the capacity to think logically allows us to become self-aware to a deeper level. You have to be able to think logically and evaluate. But there's something else hidden behind it. And what's hidden behind it at a deeper level, when you take off one of the veils, is that the study of spiritual science allows you to put into your mind an understanding of a particular structure. As a practical matter, when you study spiritual science, you understand different levels of consciousness, different spiritual planes, different human subtle bodies, the evolution over great periods of time. Those actually put a structure in your consciousness that allow higher spiritual beings to tell you more. Higher spiritual beings can give us information about what we need to do with our lives to help other people, all kinds of great processes, if we have the core concepts to begin with that they can work with. So the study of spiritual science is to actually lay down contextual foundations in our thinking, in our mind, that these spiritual beings can then come in, and when we're meditating or we're relaxed, all of a sudden things start to click internally. We get these downloads that happen in a second. But we can't have it without having the things planted in place first. Second stage is called acquiring imaginative knowledge. At this stage, we begin to develop a clairvoyant perception that's related to the faculty of sight. So we can actually perceive things in the non-physical world in a way that is spiritually similar to in the physical world. If you say somebody is visual or auditory or kinesthetic, so one person primarily processes information through the eyes, they're visual. Through the ears, they're auditory. Through feeling, they're kinesthetic. The exact same thing is true spiritually. Some people will process the clairvoyance primarily through a type of internal sight, and they see all these images on their mental screen. We can now see non-physical realities in the mind's eye. We can't see with the physical eyes that there's an angelic being in front of us, but in the mind's eye we can begin to perceive that form. The next stage is reading the occult script. This is a type of spiritual hearing. This is what is classically called hearing the tones of the universe. We are able to understand higher realities through tones. So people that are musicians or really like music, rather than seeing a visual image of a being, one would hear a tone coming from the being, and the tone would give you a quality of the being's internal nature. And then what was called living into the spiritual environment. This intuition is the ability to feel and interact with higher spiritual realities through how things feel internally. Because as we go into higher and higher planes, we're going to have some of these levels drop away. And so to give you an example of that, the astral plane is basically a realm of images. You see then with color and light. A higher plane past that, we primarily don't see things, but we hear the tones. At a higher plane closer to the Godhead beyond that, then we primarily can experience it through intuition. And with that, we actually feel the nature of the beings, the planes, etc. that we're connecting to. You have it as an internal knowledge inside of you. It's no longer outside, it's inside. Then the next stage is knowledge of the relations between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Now we understand the way that the higher spiritual world and the physical world fit together. It's a continuum. They're not really separate. The astral world is not something out there. The astral world is all around and inside of us all the time. And then the next stage, we actually have a union with the macrocosm. We can connect to the higher macrocosmic forces. This is related to higher stages of alchemy, some of the teachings you find in Taoist yoga, a lot of different traditions, when there's actually a union with the macrocosmic forces. The final stage is given different terminology in different texts. In one, they would refer to it as attaining blissfulness in God. Another would call it unifying the earlier stages. But essentially at this point of being able to unify with the macrocosm, there is not a separation of oneself from the Godhead. One can completely unify with the nature of the Godhead that's inside of our I Am presence. And this happens as a totality after the transformation of the other lower bodies. So this is the general sense of the 7 Rosicrucian stages.